All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Nurse Charms Live, and we are live. We have a great show tonight. I'm going to be introducing this beautiful queen that you see on the screen in just a minute. I just want to welcome everybody. Make sure you share this video. You're really going to get some value. Sorry, my hair keeps getting in my face. Okay, you're really going to get some value out of this tonight. Let me just make sure the comment stream is open. Okay, good. Comment stream is open. This is a live Q&A format, so you're welcome to ask as many questions as you like. Okay, I'm gonna go through my interview with some questions that I have, and then you guys are welcome to jump in on the comment feed and ask whatever you like for my guest, who I'm going to be introducing in just a moment. I always like to give a disclaimer. I'm not being endorsed. My thoughts are my own. So you know that you're going to get it from me raw, genuine, and honest. So with that, let's just go ahead and get started. I am so excited to have you. Oh my gosh, like I totally admire you. I love you. You are just so awesome. Miss Joanna Underwood, Commissioner of the Detroit City Charter. Welcome to Nurse Charms Live. How you doing?
Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you to all the listeners that's watching. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great, as best as we can, throughout this pandemic. But yeah, I'm pretty good. So, I always have everybody just introduce themselves, because I don't want to mess up anybody's title or whatever. So just go ahead and, just tell them your name and tell them, how many years you've been on the Charter Commission and, just give them a little brief background about yourself so they know you got your street cred.
Well, my name is Joanna Underwood. I am a political activist and community organizer in the great city of Detroit. I was elected in 2018 to serve on the Detroit Charter Commission, and I'm currently in the process of drafting the City of Detroit Constitution. And I just a grassroots activist, a single mother that's willing to make change any way I can for the community, for my babies and other children in the city of Detroit. And so I really advocate for the African American community, the Black community, and also for women and children. I run an organization called Detroit Black Women's Council, and we advocate for housing, access to healthy choices in food, and now we get into healthcare as far as women health. So those are the things that I am currently doing outside of every protest that has got to do with injustice. I usually be out there, but now I'm really just focusing on the commitments that I have with the council and with the commission, and just being a single mother raising a beautiful young Black boy, 10 years old. And so yeah, that's pretty much sums me up.
Right. Real quick, I just want you to go a little bit deeper because I don't think everybody knows. Like, you got 60,000 votes. I mean, that is huge. That is great an accomplishment. I mean, to be an elected official with that many votes, like how did you do that? Like, how long have you been an activist? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you just garner all of this support? That's a hard process to do. You see a lot of people out here running this current election, and they didn't get in. So I mean, what do you have to do?
I a politician. I only ran because I wanted to make change. And I started in Detroit, where I was the political lead analyst from there. And there I ran against this city council member, Gabe Leland. That was the first time I ever ran for office. And I didn't succeed. But the second time I ran for the Detroit Charter Commission, I ran a grassroots campaign. We did a people slate. I was already kind of known. I've been on the ground for 6 years. I also been advocating for every issue it was in Detroit that affect the people. And also, I'm a door knocker. I knocked 100,000 doors in my campaign, and I do the direct action approach when it comes up to campaigning. I don't do traditional politics. I don't do traditional organizing. And so my way, I'm not recommending it for everybody. It works for me, and I established my own, way of doing things. And I They was me know that hard work, and I need a job, and I think that I feel myself enough with the powers to be enough to earn that trust from the people, and they show by going out there and vote. And for me, and especially on the charter commission, because a lot of people didn't even know what the charter was, but they knew who I was, and also my colleague Nicole Smalls, and we together, really just got ourselves elected. We also got other 2 members elected as well. So we definitely that was one of the biggest grassroots campaign. And it's also, you're right, it's one of the most successful. Nicole Smalls, that was her first time running for office. She got over 50,000 votes. That is unheard of. And we did make history there. And we just not right. Well, we did make history. I know, your second time running for public office, getting 60,000 plus votes. It's unheard of. And I'm just very humble. I just do the work. And so, but I'm glad that you did say that, because that is,
yeah.
Yeah, I never.
I gotta put that. I'm like, I gotta let them know. I gotta let them know. Hold on.
Yeah. Yes.
Let me just take a second to add on our comment. Can let me know if y'all can hear. Because we're in the technology. Everything has to be, Zoom meetings and electronics and stuff. And sometimes, the screen freezes and we have technical difficulties. So, I'm looking for you guys to let us know. Make sure you guys can hear us. Okay. All right, so let's just jump right into the discussion of, COVID-19, this ongoing pandemic. I was looking at the numbers. It looks like in Detroit, we are up to 12,000 cases, 12,000 plus, 12,900, something like that. And then 1,493 deaths. So what is your opinion of how this pandemic has been handled, by the leadership in Detroit, in terms of testing, just in terms of making sure that, people have their masks, and just getting this education, just all the different components that just go into, managing a pandemic, and with credit, because, we all going through this together. Nobody is the expert, not even Dr. Fauci. Don't get me started, but anyway, what's your opinion of how things have been going with this in Detroit?
Oh, thank you for that question. I'm a political activist, but I am an elected official first priority. And I'm very disappointed about the whole response of this pandemic. We was totally unprepared, and we lost a lot of people because of it. We do not have a real functional public health department. Herman Kiefer was closed, and that was actually a hospital that dealt with infectious disease. So we lost the only clinic. Yeah, Herman Kiefer. A lot of people didn't know that they handle all the infectious diseases in Detroit. Focus mostly on sexually transmitted diseases, but they definitely did with infection control. And we lost that Herman Kiefer. So that was privatized. We also had over 20,000 residents with water shut off. We actually had over 100,000 people since 2014 had their water cut off in the city of Detroit. And that played a tremendous role on the spread of COVID-19 here. And they actually did a report, the good sister Monica Lewis, Kia Patrick of We the People, where she basically showed us the higher concentration of numbers with the COVID-19 infections was also related to the water shutoff. So in the city of Detroit, for viewers that don't know, Detroit is going through a mass water shutoff. Basically, the water bills are totally unaffordable for most of the residents here in the city of Detroit. And also, we don't have a real accurate way of actually billing people. So the residents here get outrageous water bills that they cannot afford. Also, these water bills goes on their property taxes, and people also lost homes over water bills. And it's a serious fight here. It's very similar to Flint. The difference is that Flint water was poisoned. Our water is just being shut off, and we haven't had a solution to fix this problem since 2014 when the mass water shut-offs began. I've been a strong advocate working with other water organizations to make sure we get a moratorium on water. So water is a human right. That was the
Uh-huh.
biggest. That was the biggest thing with the COVID-19 is that people didn't have water, hot water to wash their hands. So when we're talking about the spread of the virus, washing their hands for 5 seconds in hot on water and cleaning your hands properly, a lot of the residents in the city of Detroit was not able to do that, and that's because of the mass water shut off, and that led up to a lot of the COVID-19 spread. And it's evidence to suggest that a lot of people died because of it. And so I'm very disappointed with the leadership because that could have been avoided. All it would take for us is do a moratorium on water shut off, and not just when a pandemic happened, but without a pandemic, every human being on this earth should have an access to water. And it shouldn't be based upon whether or not you can afford a bill. It's based upon the fact that we need to keep people alive, because you can't go past 7 days without drinking water. So it's we have to look at the water bill differently. It's not like the cable bill. It's not like, you can go
Right.
without water, So we have to look
Yeah.
at water differently.
So explain this a little bit more detail for people who may not understand, because I've heard some criticism. People are like, well, what, people don't want to pay their water bill? Like, where do they think, because the water has to be treated and processed and stuff? They're like, well, what do you think? What do these people think, are the water activists? Like, what do they think, they're entitled to free water? Like, there's have been a lot of criticism, like, well, why they don't want to pay their water bill? Are they entitled to free water? Who's supposed to pay their water? If they don't pay it, how can water be free? What about other cities that have to pay their water? Why does Detroit? There's so much. So can you just kind of clear up some of that speculation that people think that, Detroiters just want to get free water? Is not that. What is it?
Well, it's a lot of rumors, and that just goes to be put out there to kill the argument. And the fundamental argument is the right to access to all human beings to water. That's the fundamental argument. The second reason is that Detroiters want to pay for water that they use. We also want to pay the same rate of water for the same rate as far as the money you pay the suburbs. We want to pay the same. In the suburb, y'all pay wholesale prices. We don't pay wholesale prices. We pay market rate for the water that we drink. Detroit Water and Sewer System was owned by the city of Detroit. Through the bank process of the bankruptcy that happened in 2014, when we started having these ridiculous water shutoffs, it was leased out to the Great Lakes Water Authority. And since the Great Lakes Water Authority had control over our water system, they also increased the rates as well. And so as the water rates increased, the bills became ridiculous. The average cost of water bills in the city of Detroit can range from, depending on your home, to $150 to $50. Now, you're talking about a city that has one of the highest concentration of poverty levels in the whole entire country. Actually, it is the poorest, largest city in the United States of America. And so we have a huge issue with poverty here. And so the people that is not paying their bills is that we're not getting accurate account of the water usage. So, for example, I can go out of town and my bill for the month of July can be $50, but when I come back in August, it could be $300. The fluctuation of the water bills, that is not consistent. Yeah, and so that's why a lot of people wind up, not being able to pay their water bill, because we want to pay for the water that we use. We also pay this stuff called fees. A lot of y'all people in the suburbs, y'all don't have drainage fees like Detroit. We have 3 different type of fees attached to the water use. It's not just the water use, which is basically $7. We have a sewage fee that we have to pay for. We have a drainage fee we have to pay for. We have to pay for the rain that falls from the sky that go down and flood up the main gutters in the city of Detroit. All of this is paid for. We also pay to maintain the structure of the water department as far as the physical operation of the department. We pay for that. The citizens of Detroit residents pay for that for the whole entire southeast of Michigan. So this issue need to be framed in a proper way so people can understand it's not this a whole bunch of poor black people that don't want to pay their water bills. It's a systematic racism system that is attached to this that is not being talked about. Where if I turn off your water, I can take your kids. If I turn off your water, I can condemn your house and take your house. So,
Right.
and also, if you don't pay your water bill, I can tax you to your property taxes and take your house over a water bill, not because you ain't paying your property taxes. Have you ever heard of anybody in the suburbs losing their home over a water bill? These are the type of issues that do not get discussed. And this is the type of fundamental racism that we're dealing with in Detroit. And just like with Flint, it's the same similar thing. People say, well, why? Well, the people of Flint should have known the water was poison. They always want to justify the actions of these kinds of racist attacks. But it's definitely rooted in racism. And what you see here in Detroit with these mass water shutoffs, you got senior citizens not being able to take their medications. You got single mothers with children not able to wash and bathe and cook for their children. I mean, that is, to me, that's genocide. It is. They don't even turn off people water in a time of war. So understand the fundamental argument here is, do we as human beings, regardless of income, regardless of race, have access to the basic fundamental right, and that is water, and water is life. And so for those haters and naysayers out there that's calling us and saying, oh, we just don't want to pay our bills, we want to pay for the water that we use. We don't just want to just pay random bills that Gary Brown decided to come up with. This month you're going to pay $400, and next month you can pay $100. No, we need a real functional system that we can determine. Now, if people don't want to pay their bills and just being that is some cases that some people just don't want to pay their bills, but that's not the majority. That's a small minority of people who just don't pay their bills.
Right. So thank you for explaining that. So speaking of racism, the governor the other day, she just officially made a executive order that racism is a public health crisis in Michigan. She's gonna form a task force to look at these issues, and also she wants to do some training on implicit bias. So racism, it's a large goal, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, okay, she's forming a task force, but I mean, is that going in the right direction? Form a task force, to deal with racism. What are some solutions that you have?
Well, thank you so much. The governor, I commend her from wanting to tackle this social illness and social injustice. And also, racism is a public health. I'm glad that she declared racism is a public health crisis. We've been trying to say this for a long time. Racism causes mental illnesses. Racism causes people to die. Racism kills people every single day. Racism is the number one form of discrimination in this country. Don't let nobody tell you anything differently. I do not think that the best approach for a governor to create a task force, I think it's best for her to create policy and change the systematic racist laws that is put in place to not to get the fair equal treatment under the law and our right to economic empowerment and equity. That's how you really eradicate racism. It's by making the playing field even for everybody. The issue with Black America and so-called African Americans, I use the term, loosely with that. But the issue with us is that our ancestor was bought and sold as chattel property for 265 years, and also 100 and we're going on 150 years of segregation and discrimination, where there were laws that said that we could not read. It was laws that said that we didn't have right to vote. It was laws that declared us 1/3 of human beings. It was laws that had prevented us from access to loans and predatory lending practices and things of that nature. So having a task force to talk about issues, we didn't talk about this stuff for 400 years. We done talking. We need some real
Right.
policy and some real laws to be changed, and not just, ideas. Like I tell people, I don't want to hear about your philosophy. I can read about it in a book. Philosophy better served in a book. I need real policy. I'm a realist, and I'm a real Black progressive. When it comes up to policy, we need progressive policy to have a direct impact on the lives of people for generations, because racism affected generations of African Americans in this country, and still to this day we are suffering from that. And so I think that it's a good gesture, and but no cigar. I think that we need to have a more approach from the governor, as, look, I'm going to create a different way of we doing businesses. I'm going to make sure Black businesses and the African American communities have equity. Like, for example, the car insurance. Take on the car insurance industry. Take on the fact that Detroit public school system is the only school system under her jurisdiction that have a school legacy debt, where we're being charged for an old school district that went bankrupt under the state control. How about the financial manager law that deprived African Americans from democracy by saying, okay, you guys can't run your city, we can come in and we are running for you. Where the financial manager law was exercised even more with cities of color throughout the, excuse me, I don't hate that term, that's a racist term. The financial manager law was implemented in more cities that's predominantly Black. So Flint didn't have one, Detroit didn't have one, Highland Park didn't have one, Pontiac had one. So that's not by accident, that's by design, and that's the example of the systematic institutional racism that exists in the state law. And the governor is like the state. She has extreme power, and a task force to me is a start, but it's like I said, if she really want to do something, change the laws, change the policies that the disenfranchised Black and brown communities throughout the whole entire state. You can do that now as governor.
Yeah, and speaking of some of the things she can do you support the fight for reparations? Because there are some states that are a little bit further ahead than us. I don't even know her position on reparations, if she supports it or not. And I think it's out in California. I think their governor is in favor, and they're making some headways, doing some things. But what is your whole position on reparations, and what do you feel needs to be done so we could get this moving? Because there's been so much talk. Every political candidate that comes out, they always say that, oh, reparations, because they know that's a hot talking point, especially for people who are entitled to reparations. So just let everybody know what's your take on it. Do you support it or not? And if so, what should we be doing to go about making this a reality?
I am a strong advocate for reparations on behalf of the descendants that was bought and sold as chattel property in the United States of America. I have built my whole life as far as being a woke Black woman around the fight of reparations. I think that's the most biggest fight for us as a people, is to get our justice from what was done to our ancestors. And I don't think our ancestors are going to allow us to rest until that wrong is turned into right. I don't think that we ever will get what we need, but we definitely need to get what we deserve. Now, the issue with reparations is that we have to frame the argument differently. A lot of Black people think that, oh, slavery happened for 400 years. That's not true. Slavery happened for only 265 years. The oppression of Black people and white supremacy happened a total of 400 years, started in 1619, and then we go to 2019. That's a total of 400 years. I think that when we say slavery, we do ourselves, when we say our people were sold as slaves, we do ourselves injustice, because they're going to bring up, oh, the Irish was enslaved. Oh, it was other, groups of people that were enslaved.
Right.
What makes our ancestors enslavement very unique is because we had what you call chattel property. Under the law, what
Right.
that means is that you can own an African slave for a life and their children for life. So this was generational slavery. So it wasn't like it would come a time where that person will be free. When you're talking about the Irish enslavement, they worked off the debt and they were set free. For the Africans or the indigenous Black Americans, there was no time that we would ever be free under this system. It was a ruling that was made by the Queen Elizabeth I. And when the international slave market, which people talks about all the time, where it was multiple different cultures of people that was involved in the slave trade, and also being and also selling other different cultures of people. But when they decided to make the African slave a slave for life, this created a concentration just on African peoples. And so that's when everybody said, you know what, why would I buy a so-called slave to last for 10 years when I can get an African slave and I can own them and their children forever? You know what I'm saying? I could pass them down as property. Okay. So that's
This is
what
deep.
made a
Yeah.
difference. So that's what made a big difference with us. And I think because they miseducated us on exactly what the institution of slavery was, and then the fact they keep saying slavery versus chattel property, because they clearly say that our ancestors was considered to be property. See, they don't even call them slave, they was calling them property. So
Right.
what that means under the law is that they did not take in consideration that they was humans. When you're dealing with other cultures of people, they was enslaved, but they was still considered to be human beings. The Africans that was declared 1/4 of human beings. Only the Africans was considered to be property. So those are the valid arguments that separate our ancestors and what happened to our culture different from other cultures that might have experienced similar tragedies, but nothing compared to what was done to the Africans that was bought and sold as chattel property in the United States of America for 265 years. And also, the institution of the chattel property was sold on a local level, state, and federal level. So the United States government actually owned slaves too, as well as the state and as well as local cities. So that also makes it very different, because you can say with the Irish people, they were sold in America as slaves, but that was through private owners that went and bought Irish slaves and as indentured servants. What makes the Black Africans different is that the state of New York owned slaves, the state of Michigan owned slaves, the federal government owned slaves, and they built the White House. So we're talking about public and private ownership of human beings as chattel property. And that argument, regardless of what anybody say, they cannot get around that argument, because nobody can dispute that. And the most claim is that the United States of America said they did it. They're not even denying, that the question comes is we can do. And I advocate for a delegation to be created for Black Americans, indigenous, and I think that we should extend that to the African diaspora. But I first think the delegation got to get started here, because we have a kind of different fight in every area of the earth. So, in Africa, it will be colonialism. It will be, out on the islands, it will be concerning the sugar cane plantations and things of that nature. It's somewhat little different. For example, Haiti will be different than actually what happened here in America. So but for Black Americans, we need to set up the delegation, because I feel like we are the leaders of the African diaspora, whether we want to accept that role or not. A lot of people look up to us, and I think that we should start it here, because we have a really shut and closed case here. We just lack the organization and the common understanding of how to approach it, like you said. But we're definitely can win this case, and that's the reason why they're talking about it, because the question is the matter of when we're going to do it and
Right.
how
When
much it's
it's
going to
not
cost.
even, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, we're not even
It's not
discussing
if.
the
It's no longer
possibility.
if. Yeah. We
No,
yeah, we done
yeah,
with that. Yeah. Yeah.
what the
So
United States government is pretty much trying to figure out how much it's going to cost and when do
right.
we want, So I think that
Right.
we
Yeah.
are far ahead, and I think Michigan is a slave state, and Michigan owns slaves. Detroit had plantations here too, and I think Michigan like to hide that little dirty secret. But yeah, they was definitely involved in, yeah, the French was that occupied Detroit, was involved in the slave trade, and Michigan was involved in the slave trade. They had slavery throughout the state, but
Yeah.
mainly in
Yeah.
Detroit.
Listen,
Mainly in Detroit.
I want to go back to COVID a little bit, because we have an ongoing clinical trial at Henry Ford Hospital. I think they're the only place in Michigan to do, a vaccine trial. I want to know your views on the vaccine and what can we do, especially to get, Black people, because, with that Tuskegee experiment, it costs a lot of, distrust in the government, in the medical field and everything. So, but I mean, we know that in order to get rid of this virus, hopefully, I say hopefully because I don't even know at this point if we can eradicate it. It's so widespread, but we're gonna need therapeutics. We're gonna need some type of vaccine. But you got people like, I don't want to take the vaccine. So just give us your position, and what can we do to get more Black people to accept taking the vaccine?
Well, as you know, I am a CNA, and so I work in the healthcare field currently. And I think the main thing that we need, as you know, as an experienced RN, I would like to see a treatment plan first. I know that you are more well versed in that, but usually how it goes, we get the disease diagnosed, and then we get a treatment plan, and then we get to vaccination. I think testing and vaccinations without a treatment plan is useless, because we're not going to be able to mandate everybody take a vaccination. If they do, it probably cause a war in this country. I do not know. That's a great question. You like you said, it runs so deep with the Tuskegee Airman experiment, where they was testing all them patients with the syphilis. It's such a strong and historical distrust with the medical community concerning vaccination and scientific experiments. Just currently with the whole Make the Day program, which a lot of your viewers might not know, they was testing Black women in the city of Detroit, trying to figure out the cause of infant mortality rate. And they was trying to say Black women had shorter services, and that's the reason why we had higher infant mortality rate. And this was going on with the Make the Day program that actually Dr. Hassan, who's the leading doctor and that's doing the research upon that. And that is questionable research. And Henry Ford is kind of notorious of doing these case studies on African American people, historically, going back to I think of Dr. Jewel Pokium, which I did a post about, was also concerned about the scientific experiment was being conducted on pregnant women, again, with the prenatal care vitamins. So the history is there. We're not going to be able to erase that. But like you said, it's widespread. Our people is suffering the most from it. And we do need to take proper precaution. I'm not necessarily for vaccinations that's going to be 1 year. I think a 5 year study, that's the minimum, and I think that we need to concentrate on the fact that most people recover. They do get infected from the virus.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, we do have a high death rate, but a lot of people, more people recover from the virus than die from the virus, and that we
And
would
that's
like to
the
see a treatment
education that
plan.
really isn't that's the piece that really isn't being promoted. When we look at these case numbers, like, oh, you got all these cases, but then you have to focus on recovery. I know the media, they like to sensationalize this thing and put it out there. They got high cases, but if you have high cases and if you have a lot of people recovering, then that means that you're making some progress. I mean, you obviously want
Yeah,
zero cases, zero deaths,
right.
but
But that's
I mean,
also,
that's just not. Go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted you to highlight that also means that we're fighting it. Our immune system,
Right.
that also means that we as human beings and our immune system are fighting off this virus way more than we're dying from it. So that's a good sign. And it's also a good sign that it's somewhat already under control. I think that we underestimate our human bodies and our immune system power. However, like I said, I'm really looking forward to a treatment plan, and I haven't heard anybody talk about a treatment plan. And you can, give me more details about that. Have you heard
Well,
a
I think
treatment plan for COVID-19?
well, okay, so we all know that, vaccines, they're not going to cure, right? What it's going to do is it's going to make, if you were to get the virus, it's going to make the symptoms, a little bit more manageable, or you may not even have any symptoms. It just depends on how specific they make this vaccine, right? So you will want to give it to high risk people, people who have, the immunocompromised, the elderly. You want to make sure all those people are protected, because or people with asthma, we don't want any of those people to get asthma, because they may not recover, because they got other issues, other health concerns that they're battling. Now it's like you put COVID on top of having diabetes, hypertension, asthma, any type of respiratory problems. And we know that COVID affects your lungs. So we want to try to vaccinate those people. So it's like we really got to get the education out to them to, just kind of let them know, like, it's going to be a risk benefit type thing. Do you want to get COVID, not take a vaccine, and then potentially get COVID and, potentially die? But, that's what we'll be observing and looking for those things, in the studies, of those people who took a vaccine, how they did, so we need all that data. And then, like you said, once we have all that data, hopefully that will increase people's confidence in accepting the vaccine. But I mean, I just wanted to, I haven't had COVID, thankfully, but, like, I don't know, I'm pro-vaccine. I get the flu shot. I mean, because I feel like when it's my time, it's my time. I have faith in God. So if me getting the vaccine is gonna kill me, I mean, guess what? It's just my time. I don't know what to say, but I'd rather have that protection. You know what I'm saying? But I understand the argument on both sides. I know that there's people who have gotten a flu vaccine, and they say that they were, horrible afterwards. They felt worse than ever in their life. So I mean, I get it, but it's just one of those things. You have to just look at your overall health, and decide, is it good or not for you to get it. But we'll see. One thing I do
Yeah.
want to ask you, when the COVID verse, when it first initially we first started hearing about it, it was over in China, then finally it came over to the US. People were saying, like, especially Black people were saying, oh, we can't get it, we can't get it. I think I heard
Yeah.
everybody saying that they can't get it. Then it was
Except for
Idris
me, I
Elba.
never
I think he
believed
was
that.
the first.
Yeah.
Right. I think Idris Elba was the first, Black person in the States to get it. And then there were some basketball players. And then you just start seeing more and more Black people, with the virus. And now it's like, oh, we're the most susceptible. But where did that come from? Why was everybody sharing that narrative? Because actually that may have cost some people their lives, thinking that they were invincible and, oh, Black people can't get it. I don't have to follow any of this social distancing stuff because, I'm Black and we don't get the virus. Where did that come from? Do you know? Do you know why people were thinking that?
I suspect, I don't know for sure, but I suspect that came from the woke community. The whole idea of melanin and the theory behind it was that melanin can eradicate symptoms and signs and diseases if we properly eat certain way. Black people can pretty much immune system cannot break down because the melanin is a natural preservative. They had their theories behind that, but there was no scientific evidence or real data, medical data to support that. What it was is a belief system. And the problem with the African American community, Black people, is that we believe things. We don't take time to research it. We go along a lot of
Right.
hearsay, and the hearsay becomes the truth. I heard somebody say, don't mean it's the truth. We gotta start
Right.
thinking critically and logically. And there was no evidence to prove that you cannot get it. And it also speaks to the whole thing where in the healthcare field, Black people can take more pain. So let's give them less pain
Right.
medication. So this
Yeah.
whole yeah, so this whole idea that Black people have some special things, and we do, but when it comes up to the human body and the functions, you know better than I do, it's the same for everybody. And so we are we
Yeah.
are just
Right.
we are just as human. We are just as human as everybody else. Yes, it's some perks of being Black. We do got the melanin popping and things of that nature. But when we talk about viruses and diseases, that affect everybody body pretty much the
Right.
same, because we're dealing with systems of body functioning, not necessarily anything else. But yeah, that's a big misconception. But I think like with every disease, we could talk about heart disease, we could talk about asthma rates, we could talk about diabetes. We always in disproportionate numbers when it comes up to
Right.
every disease. It's not just COVID-19. I think that the fact that we have too many chronic illnesses in our community, but you got to think about the poor health, the access to food, the poor health care that we receive contribute a lot. And I think that's the root cause of it all. We need better access to health care. We also need our own Black hospitals and clinics, and that actually understand, some of the cultural social behaviors that Black
Right.
people do that lead up to them being more prone to certain things. The stress level, for
Right.
example, and as a nurse, the stress
Yeah.
can kill you alone. So the amount of
Right.
stress Black people are faced, it suppresses the immune system, and that comes from systematic post-traumatic slavery syndrome, and that's why there are evidence that racism is a public health, because it's affecting people's health. So that's why they're coming around to
Right.
that idea. But Dr. Francis Quest Weldon already told you back in the 80s that racism was affecting Black people mentally health. Now we're going to move into the physical
Right.
health aspect of racism. And so
Right.
I'm looking forward to that conversation to be more. And I hope that you have more conversation on that aspect of the whole healthcare industry too, because even when they do get this virus under control, we still going to have to deal with some of the root causes of the lack of healthcare in our community.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. We're running close to the end,
Yeah.
but I do want you to get into the protest, because I think it's been like 60 days plus.
Mhm.
People are still, they're calling them the uprising. People are still uprising, protesting, and it's like, okay, are we still protesting George Floyd, or has this been hijacked, and are we starting to protest other causes? You hear defund the police. I mean, you just hear so many different causes, and it's like, okay, what's really going on? Because this started out, Black Lives Matter, to kind of bring awareness. Not that it wasn't a awareness, people already know, but just what are your views of the protests, and the need and necessity for these to continue?
Well, I'm definitely pro protester. I'm one of the biggest protesters and organizers in Detroit. I love protesting and demonstration. It absolutely works. Anybody who tell you protesting and demonstration don't work, 9 out of 10 never marched, never protested. I have seen the changes that come from consistent protesting that with a policy attached to it. So what happened with this protest, and I actually was involved as one of the lead organizers in kicking off the first George Floyd protest downtown Detroit. And the
Right.
whole purpose of protesting is to build awareness. And once the awareness is built, then we come with a policy for the change to happen. And that part is not happening in Detroit. I want to see
So
the
what needs
policy
to
changing
happen? You're
aspect.
right. You're right. So yeah, what needs to happen because I see these people just protest for, like I said, it's up to 60 days. And I'm like, dang, y'all still protesting and nothing happened. I mean, not saying y'all should stop, but like, it's like, where do you go from here? Do you just protest for the rest of your life? Like, how does that work?
I think for the white Caucasians that's involved in protesting, they have a totally different objective. Their objective was to let's just keep doing it because they the first generation of white people that have protested in massive numbers on behalf of racism and ending racism in this country ever. So them just staying out there the longest they have is a great accomplishment for their culture, and that should not go unnoticed because they have never done. You got to think about it in their perspective. Their culture never have done it in America. So I empathize with that. But as far as
yeah. No, go ahead.
Yeah. But see, with their, like I said, their position is that they have never, like when myself and Miko A. Williams, they was calling us and trying to figure out how to protest. So this is all kind of new for them. Yes, you had a white abolitionists back in the day, but they've never had like a worldwide kind of protest on behalf of ending systematic racism and the idea that white people must end it. So they understand that now. And it took them, 400 years to get that, that they are the ones that have to lead that aspect of ending racism and discrimination amongst the practice of their own people under their own culture. And that is commendable. And that's what I support. And the fact that they continuously to protest, for them, that is a huge accomplishment. For us, we didn't get it and we didn't been there. So for us, we need a policy change. So we need to make sure we have our Black agenda, which you hear me talk about all the time, Black agenda. Right. So while they're out there protesting, we got our Black agenda. So while you in the mood, by the way, let's put this policy in place and make sure we have what we need so we can actually do what Dr. King did, which his marching produced what? The 1965 Voting Act, which was the Fair Housing Act, which has got us all these great benefits that everybody benefits off of civil rights. But we're moving past civil rights. We're going into human rights, and we want to be looked at as human beings and have the same access to wealth, the same equality as everybody else. We don't want to be looked different based upon our race. We want to be looked at as human beings, and you seeing me that's got to come through a personal change. That no law can make you feel like and when I look at you, no law can force you to say, look at Joanna as a human being. That's something culturally that has to be done within their culture. And that's what I really don't want us to be, to the point where all these white people talking about Black Lives Matter. You got to understand, for them, they have to keep on telling themselves that. We don't. We know our lives matter. For a long time, for them, our lives do matter to them. And so them white kids keep telling them and reminding the white people, no, Black lives do matter. Their lives do matter. Right. You told us all our lives that their lives didn't matter. We're saying they do. Because if their lives don't matter, then nobody's lives matter, because they are seeing us as human beings in that generation. And that's commendable. But we need to separate white struggle from Black progress. The white struggle don't equal to Black progress. Black people create Black progress for Black people. Every Black progress that we made came from Black people. So we have to get organized, and we have to hold ourselves accountable, Black accountability, and organize and unify in ways where we get rid of the individual Black success and start thinking as groups, not just as group thinking as far as popular and trendy, but when it comes up to an agenda, Black agenda.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited you joined me tonight, girl. You have just been a fabulous, amazing. Yes, we got to do this some more. Leave everyone commenting on the feed. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Y'all have been great. They've been so supportive on the feed. Leave everyone with some final thoughts to take away from this. Whatever you want to say. Go ahead.
I first want to thank you again for having me on your show. I'm very proud of you. Your multiple businesses, like you are a Renaissance woman for real. You getting me up on my game as far as the business tip. Now, I intellectual and a protester, but the business and economics, that's you. And I'm proud of all the businesses. I love the shirt company that you're starting and everything like that. Even with this live stream you got going on. So I just want to commend you as a Black woman for always showing by example that you can be a nurse, you can have all these different kinds of businesses and be successful. And you're inspiring me and so many others too. I want to leave everybody with the thoughts of that peace of love, and that continue this fight, that we need a Black agenda, but we also need to hold ourselves accountable. I'm a big advocate for Black accountability, and that I love the great city of Detroit, and I love all the people of the African diaspora, and we need to get our together, and we're going to take unity, and I'm willing to work with anybody that's really going to work towards that. And let's get our Black agenda, and let's get some progress and some laws change.
Yes. Oh, give them all your social media. How can they get in contact with you?
Okay,
What are your
okay. You could go. You can send me an email, Joanna Underwood 1983 gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook. I finally got back on JoJo Underwood, and also you can follow me on Instagram as Lyric Divine. I'm sorry, I got to change up my names because they be on me, y'all. And I'm on Twitter as Joanna Underwood. So those are my social media platforms. I'm not hard to find, and thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, good night, everyone. That is it. We're going to wrap up this show, and we'll see you the next time. Good night, Commissioner Underwood. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Bye.